반갑습니다.
Nice to meet you all, and I am currently a PhD student from Indiana University, Bloomington, Kim Yong-sap.
영어로 준비해서
I have prepared my presentation in English, so let me proceed in English.
Thanks so much for being here and being here with us, and I'm so grateful that I can give a presentation about the development of intergenerational activity program today. So it's my great honor to be given an announce and give a presentation about advocating the importance of participating in intergenerational Taekwondo activity. So during the summer, this research has been conducted with Dr. Jung, Dr. Hyunchul Jung from Kyung University, and Dr. Junyoung Kim from Indiana University, and I conducted development of intergenerational activity program. So yes, I've been teaching and learning Taekwondo for about 20 years. So it has been my dream to advocate how certain martial arts and physical activity can impact on marginalized populations. So thank you all for being here as part of my dream and my journey. Thanks so much. So like every great presentation, I'd like to introduce my sections divided into 4 sections. So I'll go through introduction, methods, development of intergenerational Taekwondo program, and discussion and conclusion. So let's begin with the introduction. So physical inactivity is a major contributor to health-related concerns for older adults. So many research have demonstrated that older adults over 65 years old has a highest prevalence of physical inactivity in the United States. And the physical inactivity, there are many individual and environmental aspects that influence on individuals' physical activity. And the physical inactivity negatively influence on individuals' risk of falls and also depressive symptoms as well. And many older adults these days experiencing diminished engagement in social interactions, and that can negatively impact on their psychological symptoms such as depression and anxiety. And overall, that impacts on the quality of life for older adults in the United States as well. And prior study also suggested that intergenerational activities can positively impact on both generations, in younger generation and older generations. And some studies have suggested that for those who participate in intergenerational activities, increased physical functions and decreases the depressive symptoms as well. So we talked about intergenerational activities. So what does that mean? So intergenerational activities is a planned intentional interaction of different age group. So it is not just randomly assigned to each groups and played together. It has certain purposes to achieve the goals for those populations. And when it comes to use intergenerational activities, it is important to note that the frequencies, intensity, and characteristics of participants are important to know how to apply intergenerational activities programs for those populations. And also, it could be all-day activities or just an hour-long discussion. And learning new skills. From the previous panels, we've talked about life skills. So in this, intergenerational activities has a great benefit for learning life skills, such as listening skills and communication skills. And those both generations can teach life skills to each other. And intergenerational activities, by participating in intergenerational activities, participants can have a great sense of equity and inclusion that make strong bonds between those two populations. So the roles of intergenerational activities, there are three different components in these activities, which are social engagement and community building and promoting older adults' physical and mental health. So each of these components synergize with each other, and that can impact our community and society as well. So let's talk a little bit about Taekwondo. We have talked about Taekwondo from this sessions a lot, but let's talk a little bit about Taekwondo here. So as many great panels have discussed about the inherent values of Taekwondo earlier, so I would like to highlight a little bit more about inherent values on Taekwondo activities, which we call it self-discipline, self-control, and the respect for each other's. And those are all included in other sports as well. But in Taekwondo activity, we are more highlighted on those inherent values rather than the other sportsmanships. And for the physical fitness, for the Taekwondo activity, it has dynamic balance, dynamic movement, which requires just simple movement requires whole body movements. So for example, if I want to do 태극 일장, it requires a lot of coordinations and balance and strength as well. And psychological well-being, there are many studies have demonstrated that learning Taekwondo has great influence on psychological well-being. Some might argue that learning Taekwondo has a negative impact on aggressive levels, like since learning Taekwondo can be considered as a learning fighting. So someone argued that learning Taekwondo can be increase the aggression levels, but according to many research by scholars, learning Taekwondo can decrease and diminish the depression and anxiety levels at the end of Taekwondo training. So method. So I'll be talking a little bit about how we conduct this research throughout the summer. So first, method. We did systematic literature search and review to clarify some of our intergenerational activities throughout and selecting those articles from the literature. So we used online search databases such as Google Scholar, PubMed, AppSco, Web of Science, and Scopus. So from those search engines, we sorted out studies that were published in either English or Korean. And the keywords that we have used and searched for our articles were intergenerational activity, physical activity, exercise, walking, dancing, yoga, swimming, and older adults and communication and all. But we try to focus more on physical activity and exercise-based program rather than arts and craft. So we excluded some studies that are related to arts and craft and communication and learning. So among 57 articles that related to intergenerational activities, we sorted out 13 articles from those articles. So this table shows how and what research has been conducted related to intergenerational activities. So for example, Luis Dus and his colleagues in 2020, they conducted a study about intergenerational activities with 25 middle school students and 11 older adults. And they apply self-determination theory into their intervention, which is intergenerational dance activity in 11 weeks. And the result shows that the participants has increased social integration, social acceptance, and positive emotions. And like this first article in the above, there are 13 different articles you can check in on your report in front of you. So for example, like Mingeti has conducted 25 weeks of dynamic balance exercise, and the participants improved physical performance, cardiovascular health, and so on. So in our 13, we identified 7 different theories into our studies, so which are trend theoretical model, context theory, social capital theory, and situated contextualized learning theory, human development theory, personality theory, and whole person wellness model. So among these 7 theories, we choose context theory and personality theory. So contact theory is referring to intergroup contact under appropriate conditions can effectively reduce prejudice between majority and minority group members. So we chose this theory because we would like to highlight more on how Taekwondo activity can reduce ageism or discrimination between two populations. And also we used a whole wellness person model, so which has several different dimensions of wellness. So each of the activity are related to the part of dimensions in our activity. So this is a main part of our research, so development of intergenerational Taekwondo program. So for here, we have divided three different stages into our program, so which are introduction, main activity, and conclusion. So each of these activity on the second column has to do with contact theory and whole wellness person model right here. So when the program starts, the participants are having conversation with each other. And then we are greeting, and then meditation by holding each other's hands while meditating. So these activities has to do with aspects of contact theory, which are common goals and opportunity for friendships and support from authority. So each of the activity also has to do with social and greeting and social aspects and meditation and spiritual aspect as well. So this picture shows that how we did from our program. So picture on the right side, so one of our volunteers and older adults are having conversation, and if I remember correctly, they were talking about how to use their smartphone and how to listening to music with smartphone. So one of our volunteers are having conversation, teaching how to do it. So after kind of this soft communications, and then we move to the main activity. So this is a walking exercise before we went to the main activity. So when we are doing walking activity, sometimes we clapping or high five or just counting numbers in Korean, like 하나, 둘, 셋, 넷, 다섯, 여섯, 일곱. So they are counting numbers in Korean. And the picture on the left side, his name is Tom. He leads the group of Taekwondo class. So whenever we prepare for our study, he always say 차렷, and then he sees everyone is get ready. Then he say 경례, and he really enjoys to comment to each other's, and that was his one of the positive experience throughout our program. And this is another when we go to main activity, consists of whole body stretching and Taekwondo individual practice. So when we do our warm-up stretching, when we did a whole body stretching, we went along with partner activities. So this is the partner activities that my partner Tom and I did throughout the summer. So when Tom raised his hand, I pull his arms and pull backward a little bit. So that gives him that allows him to do more like increasing range of motions. But also we kind of having conversation. How do you feel? And can I how his physical functions gets better, and how his capability of physical functions gets better and better. And also, right here, we did like arm stretching and neck stretching. So we count numbers together, and also lower body stretching goes all the down here, and then touch each other's toes. So each of these exercises are kind of connections between each other. So main activity mainly consists of 5 different activities, which are blocking, punching, stances, kicking, and self-defense. So participants started to learn how to do basic stances and basic makgi and jirugi, things like that. And then when they get used to each of these participants, they have partners and do the stances on their feet and do 아래막기 and then 몸통막기 and jirugi. One of the participants do jirugi and the other partner 막기. And when they get used to these stances, then they move to the third part of the activity. So when older adults moving forward with jirugi and 막기, and the other person will move backward and do do the other activities while they're doing partner activities. So this video shows how we did at the end of our third week. So as you can see here, one of the volunteers are supporting her back while she was doing moving forward with aremaki, jirugi, and then moving backward. Can you guess how old he is? 90? Good guess. He is 93 years old. In Korean, 94. He always bring his walkers when he move and walk inside outside. He was not quite confident in moving forward and backward at the first week of our Taekwondo session, but at the third session he knew that he has a supporter and he can keep his balance with his buddies, his partners. So he was able to develop his functions, physical functions throughout the intergenerational activities. So in conclusion part, we also have the similar patterns of activities, which are cool down, stretching, sharing, meditation, greetings. So we share what was his experiences about, how does he feel about the experience in Taekwondo, and so on. So discussion and conclusion. So many previous research have suggested that participating in physical activity for older adults are difficult because of their retention rate is quite low, and some of older adults really didn't want to participate in physical activity because of their medical issues and their schedules and so on and so on. And once we have partners and they know if he's not coming to this activity, his partner will be waiting. So that makes to engage him more on intergenerational activities. And the other recommendations for instructor is common goals. Even though we don't really have specific goals for each activities, we just kind of set up the goals between each partners, like twice participate in Taekwondo twice a week or just once a week. So these helps them to participate in activities more better. And accommodating differences. If we are teaching older adults with Taekwondo activities, there are many differences between participants. So one of our participant had dementia and the other one has a physical disabilities. So for this situation, we can make a little bit of adaptations like seated, Taekwondo, and lots of variations can be applied to Taekwondo activities. And I'll skip with incentives a little bit. So the conclusion. So as I mentioned earlier, Taekwondo has its inherent values of Taekwondo activities. So by participating in Taekwondo activities, participants can have self-esteem, self-confidence, and respect for each other, and that can be all that's all we have learned from our activities. And promoting physical, psychological, and cognitive health, as I mentioned earlier, the participants have physical and cognitive and psychological benefits from our studies. And also, one of our participants and volunteers have mentioned that no, they are not going to do it because it's too complicated to these activities. So, but at the end of the final week of the interventions, the programs, they thought they were so amazed at how they can coordinate their balance and their strength and so on. So, we believe that intergenerational activities can decrease their discrimination of perspectives on aging as well. And adaptation of Taekwondo movements, as I mentioned earlier, Taekwondo movements can be varied by participants based on their disabilities and their types of conditions. So, 무예를 통한 건강하고 평화로운 인류의 삶의 기여. The vision of UNESCO ICM. So we thought that this vision of ICM is well fit to our program. So like well-being, pursuing well-being and cohesive humanity through martial arts. So this is the last slide for my presentation. I like to express my greatest gratitude to all of you who support this research and merit program. That was one of my best experience ever, because I had a chance to meet Dr. Hyunchul Jung from Kyung University, and he allowed me to broaden my perspectives on Taekwondo and how that can apply to in the real world. And also the webinar that I've been through this program was quite amazing. That I was able to understand, I was able to broaden my perspectives on disabilities. And I would highly recommend to those who really wanted to learn about people with disabilities. So thank you so much for all your support and providing us great opportunities. So this is the end of my presentation. Thank you very much for listening. 감사합니다.
Thank you very much for your attention.
네, 김용석
Thank you very much for your wonderful presentation, PhD student Kim Yong-sap.
이번 세션이
In fact, for this session, the theme is about the outcomes of the MARI program, and there will be a lot of the diverse topics and issues, along with a lot of the interest at the same time. Next, we'd like to invite Secretary General of Kana Taekwondo Federation, Adnan Lamti. Thank you.
Just press this button. Okay. Yes, as you already know, I'm Adnan Lamte from the Ghana Taekwondo Federation. Yes, my topic is to look at the social cultural effect, if you like, on women and girls practicing Taekwondo in Ghana. So the topic between stigma and status, the experiences of Unity Z Ghanaian female Taekwondo athletes. Okay, so my outline includes the background, literature review, method, data analysis, then results, discussions, and then I'll draw my conclusions. So to start with, I start by exploring the role of sports in empowering women, specifically in breaking gender barriers, and then also promoting their well-being, their growth in terms of social, political, and economic growth. Now, it has been well documented that sports has a good effect on women, and it has helped to emancipate women and empower them in various ways. Now, it's in line with ICM as an organization, empowering women and young people is critical to martial artists and sports as a whole. So in this light, I came up with this research question, and that is, what are the social cultural experiences of female Taekwondo practitioners of Unity Z in practicing Taekwondo? Now, based on these research questions, I also came up with this purpose. The purpose first is to uncover the social cultural insights from the experiences of female Taekwondo practitioners that can be used to promote not only Taekwondo, but martial arts in general, and to also keep women practicing Taekwondo as a lifelong activity in the developing country context. Now, second is to provide an impetus to more studies in martial arts in general and Taekwondo in particular, especially from the region that I come from, where research on martial arts is very scanty. Now, in reviewing literature, some of the main issues that I discovered, because I use a grounded theory approach, so I didn't have a particular thing I was pursuing in literature. But the main things that I discovered in literature in general included, one, the issues that we have been discussing this afternoon, the issue of violence in martial arts, the paradoxical views of the outcomes of martial art. And in literature, there are the pros and cons from different writers. And I can say that, yes, to some extent, so a large extent, martial arts has evolved to disabuse the minds of people that martial arts promotes violence. It has taken a lot of effort, both from academics and practitioners. But again, looking at literature review, you also realize that mixed martial art is eroding some of these gains. Mixed martial art is seen to be promoting violence. That's what I gathered from literature. Now, another perspective of, okay, now, so still emphasizing on explaining the paradoxical nature of Taekwondo or martial arts in terms of violence, I also refer to my own Grandmaster Guak, who taught me Taekwondo, who explained the concept, the philosophical underpinning of martial art. And in his explanation, he explained that martial arts or Taekwondo was like the kitchen knife. Now, a kitchen knife can be used for good purposes and can also be used for bad purposes. And I think earlier speakers have elaborated on this paradoxical view of martial arts. And then another luminary in Taekwondo who also taught me, Commander Dazi, also taught the philosophical concept of overcoming social, economic barriers in life by practicing Taekwondo. And he used the breaking of a board to illustrate how martial arts or Taekwondo empowers one to overcome barriers in life. So these are the pictures of Grandmaster Guak on the right and then Commander Kidati on the left, who gave out these philosophical explanations to martial arts and how it does not promote violence. Okay, now a second common review in literature is the issue of health. A lot of writers also look at martial arts and the effects of martial arts on health. And yes, they look at the World Health Organization's definition of martial arts, which includes a complete absence of disease or disability, but also a state of complete physical, mental, and social welfare. So many of these researchers, based on the definition of health, holistic health by World Health Organization, came up with findings that could connect this definition to the benefits of martial arts. Of course, many authors also explained the health implication of martial arts beyond the physical practice and look at the spiritual dimension. And they look at Eastern martial arts practices such as acupuncture, acupressure, massage, resuscitation techniques, and herbal medicine as all medicinal dimensions of martial arts. Now, another area of literature review that I observe is the role of martial arts in social, cultural, in the social, cultural environment. How martial arts promotes social and cultural coexistence, and how it has helped to promote international relationships between countries practicing Taekwondo and other martial arts for that matter. Now, another area of the social cultural issues of martial arts is the dimension of women. Now, sports generally, as we have observed, can promote women empowerment, but martial arts does so even more, because martial arts actually is seen as the domain of men. Now, when women practice martial arts, it helps in breaking gender barriers. Now, martial arts has no gender. If you are a practitioner of martial arts, an instructor, you know, in practicing martial arts, there's no gender whatsoever. It is in sports that we have gender. Females will compete against each other, males will compete against each other. But when it comes to the practicing and training in a martial arts center or school, there's absolutely no gender differences. And this is some of the things highlighted by some writers in literature. Now, based on these readings, I proceeded to now interview 5 female athletes in Ghana, 5 female Taekwondo athletes in Ghana. And I also look at them as a cohort. I chose the females within the Generation Z cohort, which is between 15 to 24 years. Now, I did that because that particular generation is the hope, the immediate hope for martial arts, because they are young, and they have the, if you like, the ability to decide accurately which sports they want to practice. Unlike children, when children usually have their parents recommending a particular sport for them, but with this generation, they particularly choose the sports they want to practice. So that is why I focus on Generation Z to conduct this research. Of course, so 5 of them were in the national team, and I must say that in Ghana we have very few female participation in martial arts, and across the country we have about 20 who are actually in the national team, and out of that I selected 5, and in the process I actually sought their consent, and then they happily took part in the presentation. So I conducted interviews, in-depth interviews, and I also followed that with some focused discussion until I achieved theoretical saturation. So I used closed questions to get some basic information about each of them, and then open interviews to get more information, to delve deep into their psyche and their contributions. Now, I used coding in 3 stages, and then came up with some themes and consolidated the themes until finally I came up with 2 main overriding themes. And these themes, okay, this is a picture of the participants, 5 of them, okay. So now the 2 main themes that emerged from my coding were 1, disapproval of members of society, and then 2, fame and popularity through mass media and social media. Now let me explain. Now the first theme, disapproval from members of society, has the following sub-themes: negative remarks for practicing Taekwondo from friends and acquaintances, and then change attitudes of parents, discouragement from family and friends, and name calling from schoolmates and neighborhood friends. Now in Ghana there's a term in one of the local parlances, when they say Oba Beriba, it means a woman who behaves or looks like a male. Or sometimes in pidgin English we say man woman. Now these, from the interview, these are the themes that all interviewees actually observed in their experiences with Taekwondo. And people label them as people, girls who have the potential to beat their husbands in future. So that was the first major the first major theme that emerged. Now the second theme, they also explained how even though they suffered some kind of name calling and disapproval from society, they also acknowledged that Taekwondo has given them some fame and popularity through mass media and social media. Because when you go to international tournaments and they come back with some medals, they are projected in the media. And because of that, people who largely said negative things about them will later embrace and sit with them and become friends with them. So that was the second theme in the from the interview that emerged from the interview. Now, putting them together, the first theme where the participants were labeled as Obaberema or man-woman or tomboys, okay? Analyzing this labeling, one could identify the government's theory of stigmatization to explain this labeling. So in effect, females practicing Taekwondo in Ghana are stigmatized. Now, in contrast to literature, Taekwondo is supposed to empower women, or martial arts in general is supposed to empower women. And it has well been documented. I mean, we read a lot of female empowerment through martial arts. But in the case of Ghana, it's, even though it empowers them, but it also, if you like, disempower them. In the sense that they are stigmatized for practicing Taekwondo. They are seen as people who have the potential to beat their husbands and who may also look manly. Right? From practicing Taekwondo, they may look like men. You know, in Ghana, we have this culture of believing that a female must look like a female. Now, if you look muscular, then you are labeled Obaberema. So when you are practicing martial arts, people think that you would look manly, you look masculine. Now, as a practicing instructor, yes, I have experienced a lot of my girls tell me, oh, they say I look like a man when I practice Taekwondo. But I simply put that aside by asking them, do you look like a man or do you look like a boy? So forget about that. I didn't really realize that this was something that was deep-rooted and could have negative impact on them until I conducted this research. And then secondly, with the second theme that emerged, I also explained that using the status conferrer theory, which stipulates that status is bestowed or conferred on people who are projected in the media. And through the media, they gain acceptability in society. And then it appears that from their experiences, status conferral might also mitigate the effects of stigmatization. And that might be another area for further research. So in all, even though these girls suffer from stigmatization, they also kind of benefit from the media exposure that they get from practicing Taekwondo. And so the limitations of the study includes lack of resources and time to include more participants in the survey. And then it also focused only on Taekwondo female practitioners and also in Ghana. Of course, there are other popular arts in Ghana such as karate and judo. Now the study also look at only the Ghanaian context, and I'm sure the same study might yield different results in different contexts. So it is worth studying this phenomenon in other contexts or in other countries. And then to conclude, even though literature suggests that martial arts can be an effective tool in empowering women and breaking gender barriers and then helping them to achieve their potentials, in the Ghanaian context, there's something more, and that is women can face stigmatization when they practice Taekwondo in Ghana. And I'm sure this might be applicable in other West African countries. So, in all, this research must be replicated in other places for it to be contextualized in, if you like, in a global dimension. Okay. Then the implications. First, martial arts organizations must continue to promote martial arts as a social engineering and should step up the efforts to disabuse the minds of people in Ghana who might who have this negative conception that martial arts or taekwondo for that matter can predispose women to violence or violence towards their husbands and can predispose them to develop masculine features. And then the media should also take a cue from this research and also highlight the achievements of Taekwondo female practitioners so that they'll confer some status on them, and that will help to mitigate the effects of stigmatization. And then thirdly, instructors of Generation Z must also take into cognizance the unique predisposition of this generation. In fact, I also saw that from the interview, they are also predisposed to using a lot of social media in projecting their taekwondo activities. So instructors might also be advised to incorporate technology in teaching taekwondo to female participants. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your presentation. So ICM is running projects for underdeveloped countries. In such countries, the perception of martial arts was associated with the technique of battle, especially female participation has been associated with tomboy or man-women, and such perception has been well delivered by the presenter. Maybe we can make a more social contribution going forward. Next, we have a presenter from Jordan. Lana Arbaridi will deliver a presentation focusing on female trainees' participation. Please give a big round of applause.
Hello everyone. Allow me to greet you with my greeting, Islam. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. It's great to be here and a great opportunity for me to be a part of this program. I want to thank everyone working in this program, especially Ms. Lee. Thank you so much. I am Jordanian, Rana Al-Baradri. I have PhD in physiology. I have it from my university, the Jordanian University of Jordan. I am BE teacher. Sometimes I assist my professor in university to give some lecture. I tried to simplify my topic as possible as I can because it's a pure physiology, and I hope you can get it. I am with my friend Kim with the experience in this program. It was great and a lot of benefits in it, and also the online course too. So high recommendation for it. So my topic is, I can move. Until now? Until here? No, it's good. Okay, my topic is the effect of luteal phase on the aerobic capacity and physiological hormonal variables for Taekwondo player in Jordan. Next. Okay. As introduction, I want to explain what the luteal phase, what I mean in luteal phase. This picture shows us the menstrual cycle. Menstrual cycle, it's a complex, cycles. It's including different cycles in each other. And I take just luteal phase from this cycle to make my research on it. You know, female cycles, menstrual cycles started with bleeding and ending with bleeding, and it's measured in average between 28 to 35 days, and it includes different cycles in each other. And I will talking now about luteal phase and how it's affect in performers for Taekwondo player in Jordan. Okay. What lateral review said, the redistribution of training loads according to volume and intensity, considering functional capacity of female athletes in different phases of the menstrual cycle will enable the coach to have their planned training. Both genders are able to adapt and carry different exercises and the same training curves. There are a range for areas that should be taken into account when carrying out physical exercise in women, including menstruation and etc. Next, I can proceed. Both genders have the ability to play and practice the same game with the same efficiency and capacity and compete among themselves until they reach the age of 10, puberty age that identifies the beginning of adulthood and sexual development to both sex and other physiological factors which start to affect on performance. Physical activity is important for both genders, but the anatomical, physiological, and psychological characteristics of women must be taken into account in the exercise of women. Sports, adulthood is a stage that causes the emergence of gender differences. That's what some of the studies which I talked about. My gap was there is scarcity of studies about the impact of menstrual periods of physiological function for players of sport in general and Taekwondo in Jordan, since the menstrual period is one of the most important and special things for females because of anatomical and functional characteristics and the lack of research findings on this point has increasing the need for more accurate reinforcing scientific information on this subject. The purpose was to identify the impact of luteal phase on the aerobic capacity and some physiological variables, blood pressure, heart rate for Taekwondo player in Jordan, and identify the level of female hormones, estrogen and progesterone, and the blood lactate level during the luteal phase for Taekwondo player in Jordan. The first question was, is there any statistically significant difference for luteal phase from ovarian cycle on the aerobic capacity and some physiological variables, which is blood pressure, heart rate for Taekwondo player of Jordan, and is there any statistically significant difference on the level of female hormones, estrogen and progesterone, and blood lactate level during the luteal phase from ovarian cycle for Taekwondo player in Jordan? Methodology was the design experimental method was used for this research, where our pre and post test had been taken, which means pre I mean luteal phase, and after, which means third day for bleeding in the same circle for the females. The sample was Taekwondo player aged between 50 to 20 years and practice for Taekwondo. The sample consists of the 13 volunteers of Taekwondo player who have the following condition: having normal menses period, not subject to any treatment, B signal, age between 50 to 20, have a black belt 1 dan and up, regular training with 3 doses weekly minimum. There are some photos For the equipment used during the study to measure the variables, physiological variables, and lab medical tools, which I use it to. Here are my protocol and how I designed it to measure the VO2 peak protocol for measure oxygen consumption. Here some of photos during the test for females and player. My result was of the physiological variables between luteal phase before and the beginning of menstrual period after. It was significant for blood pressure and heart rate and not any significant for oxygen consumption. And our graphs here show us the same things. We can see it was better, it was different and significant between two periods, which luteal and beginning for females. And the result for the hormonal, and level lactate in the blood, it was not significant in progesterone and estrogen, and there is a significant just in the blood lactate levels for females, and the graphs after this table show us the same result, which was better. The lactate level was more in beginning of the period, and it means the luteal phase was affected in the performance during the test in females, which means do more and more for lactate levels in the blood. As a conclusion, ovarian cycle is the most important thing that must be taken into account in the exercise of their effect on the performance of the player in general and in particular Taekwondo player, and luteal phase of the ovarian cycle affect on physiological variables under study where player performance in the period of the beginning was better than the period of luteal. Luteal phase of the ovarian cycle affect on blood lactate also, where player performance in the period of the beginning was better than the period on luteal. And luteal phase of the ovarian cycle has the greatest impact, low level in the performance of the player due to physiological and hormonal change that accompany it. Recommendation: conducting similar study in the future for this importance in the field of sport training, measuring other physiological variables, increase the player awareness of the vital physiological changes to deal with those changes in opportune way during their training and in scientific ways. Additionally, there is a need to study psychological side during ovarian cycle with physiological side to detect all changes associated with this phase, which can have clear impact on the performance and achievement of the player. And thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much for your good presentation, Lana from Jordan. You also talked about the effect of the luteal phase on the aerobic capacity as well as the physiological variables for Taekwondo players in Jordan for how to really develop the programs for the Taekwondo players with the changes in the hormones as well as circumstances in the physiology. Of course, we don't only have a lot of the expertise in the physiology for players, but in this regard, for the women engagement and the social development, these are also major concerns in the martial arts. So I really hope that we can utilize that concept and the issues for the future as well. And it's time to invite the last presenter from the US, the Sergey Osachi, the wrestling coach, for the last presentation. And he's also going to provide the coaching and the motivation for his presentation. Let's welcome him with a big round of applause.
Hello, everyone. Everybody's probably tired right now. So I would like to finish our seminar with my paper, and I would like to ask you how many martial arts coaches present here in the room. Please raise your hand. At least one, at least two. Okay, so 3. Okay, so they'll be we'll be talking about the coaching behavior and how it can change the human how it can change athlete motivation and can lead to dropout. How go back? Go back. Okay, so I would like to begin with my story, my background in wrestling. I know that everybody pretty much here from Taekwondo, but I will be representing a community of wrestling. So I started wrestling in 3rd grade, and I had great experience, and it changed my life drastically. But somehow I had not very good experience with my coaches. So some of them were abusive, some of them were good leaders, some of them were not, and that's why I strive to this topic and would like to share my findings. So no, go back. So what is the coaching behavior and how it can actually influence athlete? So the first will start from self-confidence. So self-confidence, it's belief in yourself and how you can be capable in the sport, and then we go to self-esteem. So self-esteem is very important, and it has value of self-worth. And self-determination will position your persistence and goal setting. And next will be athlete motivation, and we'll see how athlete will be motivated to continue participate. And it might lead to drop out of the program. So I would like to participate in this slide and describe the coach by yourself. How you can describe it. So you can take a pen and paper and jot down a couple words if you wish. And I would like to share what is my findings about the coach. So the coach first, C, can be challenging, testing one's abilities and demanding. All will be observant, quick to notice things and be alert for something. Can be accountable for somebody who is liable for another and responsible. It can be creative. Ability, the power to create. Creativity involves combining both the fun and the hard work. And H will be for honorable. It's morally correct and honest and ethically correct. So these are findings by other scholars about the coach. So no matter how capable and hardworking the athletes and the team are, it's impossible for them to achieve success unless they're properly guided and improved both technically and tactically. The coach is a sports person who guided the athletes in line with their skills, trains and prepares them for competition, and leads them by combining theoretical knowledge and experience. every behavior of coaches is important for their athletes. Furthermore, even coaches expected for athletes could affect athletes' performance, for which is also known as Pygmalion effect. So Pygmalion effect is a very interesting topic to talk, but briefly to touch, in my words, I had one student when a newcomer student came to wrestling practice, and he was very shy and he didn't know what to do. And meanwhile, I was encouraging him to keep practicing and not to drop practicing. So I believed in himself, and somehow he blossomed. Meanwhile, he blossomed, and he won the state. He won the state and become a state champion. So this is an example of the Pygmalion effect. Next. Talking about the major coaching behaviors, they can be known as the styles as well. So there are three major coaching styles. The first one is autocratic, democratic, and training instruction. So let's review them a little bit closely. So autocratic coach, the coach who don't take any inputs from the athletes, and usually his ability is to win at all the cost. So autocratic coach makes decision with little known input for the athletes, and the coach articulates vision for what he needs to be accomplished by athletes. Autocratic coach focused and typically features inflexible training and structures. Democratic coach facilitate decision making and goal setting with input from their athletes instead of dictating of them. This style of coaching is athlete centered, and the athletes shape their own objectives on their framework. Democratic coaches give a lot of autonomy to athletes and teams who are active collaborators in their own development and direction. And last one is third, training instruction. Training instruction incorporates how the coach's behavior is directed toward improving an athlete's performance. Coach who points out to each athlete's strengths and weaknesses tended to increase the student athlete's self-efficacy. Training instruction refers to coaching behaviors aimed to improve athletes' performance by explaining and emphasizing the techniques and tactics of their sport, clarifying their relationship among the members. Something is not good in here. Okay. So this slide is kind of fell off, but so there's a correlation between our findings, the correlation between coaching behavior and athlete self-efficacy, right? If coaches do not let their athletes in decision making and behaving autocratically and only telling students what to do and not taking any input from the athletes, that will be affecting athletes' self-esteem and self-efficacy, and might lead to them to drop their practicing. The next, please. So as you can see, there's a correlation between all of these three styles, and athlete self-efficacy, and athlete motivation, and athlete turnover intention. So as you coach, you might choose one of those three and kind of see response from your team, from your athletes, and which one is better working and which one is not. The findings are suggesting that democratic behavior and training and instruction behavior will be the best solution for you to keep your students in practice and not to harm them and not to make them to leave. But this work better for youth and younger generation, for more older students, sometimes better to use autocratic behavior. I practice it myself and it worked better with the older students, but it's up to the team, and it's sometimes it's applicable, sometimes it's not. So next one, this is it. Thank you for listening.
So I appreciate Sergi for your presentation. So session 3 was delivered by Maori participation and what they experienced. So a separate discussion session was not prepared. If you have any questions, please feel free to present any question. So many attendees seems that please don't ask such thing. Out of all the attendees, we have many university students and undergraduate students. So when we execute Maori program, please give continued support because it is such a wonderful opportunity to deepen your background and expertise. Under the topic of martial arts and mutual respect, non-violence, and how to control in martial arts, and many international domestic scholars engaged in presentation and discussion.
오늘 2021년
So International Martial Arts Academic Seminar 2021 is coming to an official end. I appreciate all the presenters, discussants, and attendees, and staff of Secretariat, and all the stakeholders for your support. And please give a big round of applause for official ending of the seminar. Thank you.